Hi, everybody. My name's Jordan. I'm in Ontario right now, so it's not terribly late. It's 9:30. My bedtime's 9, so he was right. But yeah, I have been very fortunate in real estate. I think the fortunate part is that I like it as much as I do. I am just excited to talk about it when anyone wants to sit down and have a conversation with me. But yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I started out of high school. I went into an apprenticeship, an electrical apprenticeship in Ontario. It takes 5 years for me to go from starting in my job, working my way up to being a journeyman. And throughout that time, I bought my first house. I think I was probably in my fourth year at that time, and bought a townhouse. With the intention of renting out the upstairs. It was a really small 1,200 square foot, 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom. And I bought it and lived in the basement. I rented the upstairs 3 bedrooms to some kind strangers that I had met at the time and just kind of made a go of it. I think at that time I was pretty challenged because I saw one of my friends do it, and he was much slicker at it because he was first and had all of our close friends move in with him. So probably a little bit easier of a start. But from there, I put a unit into the basement. I was always pretty handy, so I could do a few things. not always right, but I sure gave it my best shot. After that, I got my license and decided to buy my first rental property. It was a house that was converted into a triplex, and it needed a lot of attention, but it had amazing cash flow for Ontario, which was kind of a unicorn. So we bought that, Janelle and I, who was my girlfriend at the time, and who agreed to live in the basement of that first house where we rented the upstairs out. So we bought that house and we renovated it. After we were done our jobs, we would head over there at like, oh gosh, I don't know, 7 o'clock, have dinner and renovate until about like 10 or 11. And eventually we got it done and got some pretty decent tenants in it. Super funny story. When we bought the place, it had a shed in the back, and this place was so run down that it had an occupant in the shed, which we weren't expecting, and had to have a couple of conversations to say, hey, like this isn't a place to live. And yeah, so we eventually turned it around and made it a really nice place. Years later, we ended up buying the neighboring property, which was really cool. But we bought a second property, which was a purpose-built triplex, a really, really nice building. I bought that one because it had a really nice floor plan. It was a 3 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 2 bedroom, which wasn't terribly common in our area. And Janelle and I, we had kind of a moment. We had gone and seen Robert Kiyosaki, who was like, thank you for providing that knowledge and guidance, that real estate has so many opportunities for you to not only make money in, but have great relationships along the way. So Janelle and I had gone to Robert and had a conference and had the real estate bug. And we worked hard and long hours. I had an electrical contracting business. I eventually got my journeyman ticket. And in Ontario, to get a business, you need to do another 2 years of work experience to get your master's electrical license. And then they'll give you the ability to own your own business. So I had started my own business a really small electrical practice. I had a couple of employees at the time. Janelle, my beautiful wife and business partner today, she was in school for architecture, which was super fascinating to me. I really love buildings and was in the rental industry. So her and I had an opportunity. We always talked about wanting freedom of our time. I had a company, but it was really, really busy. There was no free time at all. And Janelle was working for someone, and she had to drive 45 minutes to get to her employer from where we lived, and then 45 minutes home. So she was spending an hour and a half on the road a day, which wasn't very ideal. So we would always brainstorm. We would sit down and we would have conversations about, hey, like, look what real estate can do. Look what it has done for a close friend of ours who was having success, and some other people that we knew. And so we decided, hey, we have some skills, we can do a conversion. So we turned our triplex into a fiveplex, which is like really kind of small, but big at the time. And that was our decision to both leave our jobs. We were thinking, okay, we know what it's going to take to renovate it. We know how to deal with the city. And we know what the estimated completion value is going to be. So heck, like, it's going to be double on the low side of our salaries for a year. So we might as well just give it a shot. So we did. We left our jobs and renovated this building that we had. It was a nutty time, to say the least. Janelle and I were having our first child, Everly, who is a beautiful girl. She didn't love the job site. She was probably about 3 months old at the time, and Janelle was on site and I was on site, and we had her in a little playpen, and we would go over and say hi. But a construction site isn't always the best place. We were really safe, just in case anyone wanted to know. So yeah, after we did our conversion, which had a lot of struggles along the way, and not challenging, but like really, it took a lot to get through it. And when we did, we ended up refinancing the property, and it was better than we expected. And so from there, we were just like, oh, real estate, this is it. So we purchased another property, which was the neighboring property to the first one we had. And it had a really deep lot. We were familiar with it. So we ended up turning a single family house into a fourplex, putting a 3,000 square foot addition onto the back and adding a couple of units. And at that point, we were like, okay, this is definitely the path forward for us. We have some really nice opportunity to spend with our daughter, even though sometimes it was on a construction site, not all the time, but sometimes. And so we opened up our company. We called ourselves Acquire Real Estate. And over the last year and a half, we have been doing developments in Ontario. And Adrian, thank you, Adrian, has been a fantastic pillar of light for me, has helped me through my first acquisition in Alberta. So we Adrian and I have been talking almost from January 1 at this point, all the way till now, and closed our first deal 3 weeks ago, which is huge news. I thought when I was going and leaving my job and going into real estate, and this is to touch on a point that James made earlier, it really wasn't about getting into real estate and then everything was taken care of. We left our jobs and were just so excited to have the ability to, on a Thursday, decide to go out and golf. And I personally enjoy golf and would love to get out way more than I can, but I also enjoy real estate, so have been quite busy there lately. We found ourselves really obligated, and like buying a few properties and doing developments, it does take a ton of coordination. And I wouldn't recommend starting out in that tactic. But in Ontario, it's kind of your only option, perhaps in BC as well. I was seeing that market update. Those are expensive single family houses. We started focusing on how we were going to be able to not only expand our business in real estate, but keep our time available to spend with our 2 young daughters, which is definitely the reason we do this, is to have as much time with them as possible. A couple of barriers that we hit when we were going through were hiring a property manager. We started out managing our own properties, and that's how I found out that there was a fella renting our shed that I didn't know about when we bought the property. We hired a general contractor, and I have a lot of experience, and Janelle has a lot of experience in construction, but there was still a ton of things that we didn't know when we got into it. But luckily, everyone we've come across in real estate has a fantastic mindset of abundance, and they just want to help. That's not what I felt when I was doing electrical contracting. But when I got into real estate and I started talking with people, they just genuinely wanted to help. So our general contractor, who thankfully was a kind soul and wanted to help, got me through our first development, because we wanted to purchase and expand our business. Adrian obviously is an outstanding realtor who I am so thankful to have met. I also have a realtor in Ontario, John. He's a fantastic person, and a close friend now, because we've been able to do so many deals together. I suppose the whole point of this story is to say that real estate can provide a lot of challenges, for sure. And you will hear a ton of stories, both great and sometimes not so great. But the relationships that you're able to make, and the money that's available to make, if you're patient and consistent, is phenomenal. So thank you for listening, and I appreciate your time.